Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday morning. Happy July 4th week. Happy shortened trading week. How's everyone doing today? Good morning, John. Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Dean. Good morning, PMG. Good morning, David. Good morning to people in the background. Again, shortened trading week. Friday is a holiday in the USA. Markets are closed, so I won't be here. I won't be here. I'll be grilling and chilling. So that's what we have. But before that, we have today quarter end, month end for June. Market's still just grinding higher. I am in super cautious mode, just looking for topping patterns and trailing. So yeah, it's another manic Monday. You got to buy it all. Got to buy it all. Good. Hello, Charles. Good morning, Tony. Got to buy it all. Again, these markets very, in the short term, very overextended. Not even a pausing bar. Good morning, Martinez. So we'll have to take a look. Again, no topping pattern yet, but on high alert, at least for a pullback. Not a crash, but at least for a pullback or a pause. Okay, when it's this overextended, certainly I'm not chasing it. Good morning, Harold. All right, we have Chicago PMI coming out this morning. We got Bostic speaking. We got Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index. We got some 3 and 6 month bill auctions. We got the quarterly grain stocks for corn, soybeans, and wheat, if you're a grain trader. And we got Goolsby speaking this afternoon. Oh, Sterling won't be in the chat today. Just letting you know. Tomorrow, you got Powell speaking. You got the ISM manufacturing numbers. I'm just going to highlight some things from this week. Wednesday, again, the EIA numbers, but not much going on Wednesday. Thursday, because we have a holiday on Friday, you got a bunch of stuff too. You got the unemployment rate. You got non-farm payrolls. So that would normally be on Friday, but that's on Thursday this week. So we have jobless claims. We have non-farm payrolls on Thursday. We have the ISM services. So the biggest day this week is Thursday, definitely in terms of numbers and releases. Good morning, Bill Strike Cheetah. So that's where we stand right there. So Thursday, we can't take the week off early. All right, this morning, Palantir that got trashed on Friday, up nearly 5%. Other things like Oracle's up big this morning off some stronger guidance. But it's literally buy everything except Tesla. From the Mag 7 perspective, banks are stronger. They had the stress tests. Goldman Sachs up nearly 4%. So utilities are the only thing really getting hit this morning across the board. If I refresh this, you can see comm services, technology, financials leading everything. Utilities, consumer defensive are lagging. Fed was still nearly an 80% chance for a pause in July. Fear and greed still solidly in greed mode. Schiller PE ratio 37.65. Getting really pricey. In terms of earnings, there's nothing. I mean, there's a look. What is this like? Constellation Brands. I will definitely check in on that tomorrow, but nothing market moving this week. Nothing market moving. All right. Good morning, Heinrich. Again, wedging up higher, above, very, very overbought. Daily cycles getting to the topping area. Weekly cycles pinned at the top. By the way, for anybody following along with the cycles, because I'm also doing the newsletter, I'm using the second cycle, the longer cycle stuff right now because we're so pinned. So remember, this was before the RSI length used to be 8, the stochastic used to be 5, and then we had K and D as 3s, and this is the stochastic RSI. I've gone out to the longer ones, which are 13 for an RSI, 8 for a stochastic, and 5 and 5. So 13, 8, 5, 5. The other setting was 8, 5, 3, 3. So if you're adjusting or if you're wanting to set up the charts like me, then that's why normally for my own stuff, for my personal charts, I have both on here. It just get too crowded and too confusing for a live stream perspective. but that's why we don't see the extra double dip in here. I went to the longer cycles for my other charts for the newsletter. It's just easier instead of trying to explain it. So that's what we're watching for right now. If you want to set up, there's another way to set this up too. On the weekly, use longer cycles. On the daily, use the shorter cycles. You can play with that setup also if you don't want to overcrowd your charts. All right. For right now, again, the major breakout area was, back right around the 61, 66, 61, 65. So that's key support with the daily rotation zone on any pullback. That's your key support. What I'm looking at, again, don't even have a short-term pausing bar. So my target, the only target I still have is 63.33. Besides, trading, if we do grind higher today, 62.50, just because of the round number principle. So that's it in the short term. What I am again keeping my eye on right now, besides trying to click in the right spot, is any pullback into the rotation zone. So like on Friday, pulled back in the rotation zone, setting up a nice percent B, not on this one. It was not on that one. It was a little 1 hour. I'm trying to remember where it was. There was a little percent B buy here on the 1 hour on Friday. I won't go percent B buys below 1 hour, but that was a little dip into the 4 hour rotation zone. Come on. There we go. And then taking that out Sunday night's high. So on pullbacks, I'm paying attention to about 62.30 to about 62.25. On a bigger pullback, I'm paying attention to closer to 6,200. Other than that, if I had to do a little minor target today, I'd be using the spike low in the 4 hour rotation zone on Friday to what could be a pausing bar high. Then if we took out 62.50, I'd use 62.64 and 62.73 for today. Okay. But now I will be cautious also this afternoon. Because you can get some unwinding of positions going into quarter end also. Especially with this bigger run up. So NASDAQ, same thing. Here was that's the one I was thinking about. This was the percent B buy on the 4 hour. This was the percent B buy in the 4 hour. You see spiking in there. And then Sunday night took out the high. And that was a nice little pausing area high. Here's the area I was looking at. You see how right there. That was the key area I was watching last night. 22,755, 22,756. Taking that out, just grinding higher. So 4 hour rotation zone, roughly about 22,800, just in front of 22,800. And then the lower is about 22,650. Minor targets. Again, if this is a pausing bar, if not, I'll have to shift it over one more if we do get that. But 22,955 and 22,993, so roughly 23K to the upside. Again, on a daily basis, incredibly overbought. Cycles getting the topping area. Your major support, the major support in the NASDAQ coming back at 22,500. And I need to reiterate, there are no topping patterns yet. So it's trailing, cautious trailing. Dow on Friday took out the 87.5 again. The Dow also coming into a major resistance zone, no pausing bar here. Next key target area I'm looking at, though, in here is right around, if it keeps grinding higher, about 44,800. We don't need to go to shorter term. Russell did not close above the 62.5 on Friday. Breaking above it now. We also had Russell rebalancing on Friday. So targets are still in play today, 22.20, and then majors 22.50. Again, I'm watching today if we close above the 62.5 or not. If we do, it chasing this higher at the moment, need a pullback. VIX, little gap up today. Not much to talk about there. DAX is officially in. This is a weird double top pattern. It's valid on the weekly. So for this to trigger for me, it'd be early warning on a daily close, and that's a long way away. But it has to follow through on a weekly close. Why a weekly close? Because also we're against a weekly rotation zone, and we have this lopsided thing over here, so it's a cleaner pattern on the weekly. But in the short term, the key support in DAX is 23,800. The yields came back, retested on Friday. The last little breakdown zone today retested again. We have the overhead rotation zone. So I can't do anything, at least from a rising yield perspective, unless we get above 4.358 on any rally. Now I'm still watching for rollover plays. We are at cycle bottoms, though, so I'm not there's nothing to the short side right now. And we could be setting up, even on another push lower, for a divergence. So it's sort of in no man's land, going to be watching for a rally and then a rollover play, just nothing yet. Set inverse to the yields. On a yield pullback now, you can see how it broke above prior resistance and with the rising rotation zone. So we used to have a little mini double that's confirmed, but then turning into a never triggered, but turning into a triple. Crude, nothing to talk about. Nada. Only thing I'm keeping an eye on here, this has turned into really a horizontal channel. We'd still have to get above about 66.60 for a breakdown, or to breakdown play below 64. Other than that, not any great setups in crude either. Oh, you're in here, Sterling. I thought you weren't going to be in here. Yep. It did get smoked. Now it's running back up. I mean, here we go. We'll just jump to that. There's Palantir down on Friday, 9%, but it's already back up 5%. It's just buy everything. Here was the other thing this morning. Let's jump to this real quick. Here's Oracle. By the way, if you're looking for targets on Oracle, still the next minor level is roughly just in front of 229. We're trading 226 pre-market. What else? Natty Gas. Natty Gas had a 4-hour double. Got to the first, nearly to the second target, and then I was actually watching for a pullback here for another potential long entry, but right now it looks like it's going to close below 62.5, so that will be off the table. Natty Gas running up on the double, first, second, nearly hit the second target. You can see right there on Friday, and then Sunday, just boom. I was looking for a long entry. That is off, will be off the table now. Gold, this is interesting. Going into cycle bottoms and oversold conditions, I'm now looking for a %B buy bounce potentially tomorrow. But the target area at this point would only be 3. This would be a short-term bounce trade because we've got the rotation zone against it now. So I'm looking for roughly 33.44 only as a target. But that's not even triggered or set up yet officially. Coming back, why am I also looking for that? Because we've come back down between the 50 and 62.5. And that would be back above the 50. That could be a bounce play only, though. Silver, again, pulling back down the bottom of the rotation zone. Cycles at the bottom. So I'm keeping an eye on this unless we close below the rotation zone. So keeping an eye on that. And it's a really weird double setup. But if it does close back below Tuesday the 24th low, then I'll be very patient on silver again. Dollar index, the major potential double bottom is off the table as of this point. So there's no longer term potential setup. Still, we have this harmonic cluster right around 96.50, and we've triple bottom there with oversold conditions and cycles getting to the bottom. So could be watching for a bounce play here, but that would only be back to the rotation zone on the daily basis. The euro, again, triple topping right around this harmonic. the 117.75 area. I'm going to be watching for a pullback into the rotation zone there. There's just not a lot of great setups for me over the last couple days. The still harmonic on the spiders. Next one is 623.97. I'm keeping an eye on the 1 hour rotation zone on the spiders. We do have potential double top territory, so this would break below the 1 hour rotation zone and could lead to a slightly bigger pullback. So that's the only timing. We don't have one in the S&P yet, but we have one in the spiders, and if that were to trigger, I'd actually then look for the minor, bigger pullback based off the spider signals, but it's nowhere near triggering yet. And what would take it off the table? What would take it off the table if we get above 617.78? We're at 617.50 today. Okay? So if we grind a little more higher, it's off the table, above 617.78. The Qs, $551.26. See, that would take this potential double off the table, and we're going to gap above that $551.60. So there's not even going to be a potential double in the Qs. Now, the next key thing, I'm still watching this 1 hour rotation zone, but the next key thing is 552.56 is the next minor target for me, or the next actually major target for me. On a bigger pullback on the daily, we're at the prior breakout area with the rising 8 around 540 on the Qs. Hey, Rick. Good morning, Tony. Good morning, Martinez. Good morning, Harold. Oh, what? Wait, did I miss you guys? Oh boy, I'm losing my mind. Oh, you're still at LabCorp. Okay. So you're on via your mobile device. I went looking for some value plays this weekend. I found JXN, which is great financials, and the daily weekly inverse head and shoulders. We'll take a look at that. I have not looked at that stock. Yeah, very sloppy inverse head and shoulders, but it's more interesting with that 200. This would be another one. I wouldn't use the targets for the head and shoulders. I'd be looking at the 96.28 because that's very sloppy head and shoulders, Sterling. 96.28 would be my first target, right around there, especially with this two tops just above there. But that's a really nice play above the flattening out 200 with the separating rotation zone. Thanks for pointing that out. When crude is doing nothing like it is when I would not be doing that right now with crude. Why would I not be doing that right now? Because if you have anything flare up in the Middle East again, at least I would not be doing that from the long side. I think it's too risky a play right now given the geopolitical events in crude. So, personally, no. If I was going to do something, it would have to be I'd have to structure like a butterfly or a condor to limit my risk. I'd have to structure a butterfly or condor with the head being right around where it is now, because that would definitely limit your risk. And then you could collect premiums. That's the only way I would do something. But again, I'd probably try to leg in that and getting it to near zero premium outlay as possible. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Anybody, I mean, Charles, you probably do, but if you're not familiar and you don't trade a lot of butterflies or condors, don't try to learn that and get fancy with it. That's suicide. What else? We have Tesla. Tesla, really, the only thing I'm watching that if we do break back below the 200, and that would be a short-term breakdown play. Other than that, there's not a great setup in Tesla just yet. NVIDIA, all highs, if we continue up 161.44 area, is the next target. Broadcom, next target 280.33. Again, these things we've got waning momentum. That's another thing I'm keeping an eye on. Good morning, Kevin. You have no idea what that means. Then don't worry about it. XBI. You don't trade options? XBI. Oh. The only play I'd consider for myself is, miners, if breaks above this 84.40 again, with the first target 85.72, it's got to get above that to target the 200. That would be it. If it started breaking down below 81 again, and then I'd be looking for potential shorts. But again, it's sort of in a constrained range. There's not a lot of great setups from my perspective here. Just trying to figure out where it wants to go next. URA %B sell. I'd only use that right now. We have a double. We have a double. This is where it's trailing for me. We have the double. If this breaks down, %B sell, technically it had to close below Thursday's bar on Friday, which it did not do, and it's against the rotation zone. There is a double top here. I should say potential double top. That is it. Would I be shorting anything with uranium? No. It would only be if you were trailing short-term longs, because long-term longs, if you look at the bigger picture here, remember how many times it topped out here and we finally broke through that. Yes, it's overextended from the weekly rotation zone, but if this double were to trigger, it would just take it potentially back to the breakout level in the weekly rotation zone. This is a double I would not be shorting. This is something I'd be looking for these levels for pullback trades. Why? Again, it's above its major. Look at that. I would not be shorting into a breakout zone. I'd be looking for pullback and then more longs. Well, I can only use my settings, and my settings are right here. High-low close divided by 3, length of 5, standard deviation 1. Those are the official settings. I'd be watching into this daily rotation zone also. That's why this is a lower probability double, but there's no way I'd be shorting that. Again, your uranium can trend for a while. Now, if we start breaking and don't hold support, then I'll be very patient on a bigger pullback in uranium. But for right now, uranium can start going for. It trended down forever, and it's built a very solid base. I've been talking about uranium for years on here, and we're finally getting the breakout. What else did I miss? Bitcoin. Channel rising rotation zone. Still, this is it officially over? Well, remember, it never triggered, but is it officially over? Yes. No, it's technically not. Sorry, I misspoke. Technically not. But, I'm not, again, looking for any shorts just yet. Not in this market. So, let's just peek back to the S&P. Not much going on. Again, keeping on that 4-hour rotation zone on any pullbacks. Looking to see if those doubles in the spiders gets invalidated. Other than that, This is just grinding higher, very oversold, very overbought in multiple time frames, and way above the, if you just put on Bollinger Bands. Look at this, just poking above it. It does not stay above the upper or the lower. If you're just using the pure settings on the Bollinger Bands, 20 and 2s, it does generally not stay below the lowers for very long or above the uppers. That's why I'm also in very cautious mode. If you want to look for something, normally when it grinds higher, see how much it can grind on these, but it doesn't stay overextended. This, see how it ground on here back in 24 and it's grinding higher, but it did not remain above it. This is where this is remaining above it for multiple days. Would not be chasing anything higher here unless it was like a intraday trade. That, again, why I'm very, very cautious. All right, with that, not much to talk about. Let's just see how the tick opened. Decent opening in the tick. Decent opening in the tick. So, again, the market will just continue to grind till it doesn't. I'll be very cautious this afternoon, though. Very cautious this afternoon. With that, I will see everyone back tomorrow. Just don't do anything silly or stupid. And remember, we have a shortened trading week. With that, I'll talk to everyone later. Bye for now.